Hey, Bulls and Bears. It is Wednesday, July 28th, 2021. Thank you for joining me. Yes, I listened to the full briefing from the Fed and from Jerome Powell, so you wouldn't have to. And there's a few takeaways I want to bring to you out of this today. And we're going to talk about some other economic stuff, some broad economy stuff, some local economic stuff, and get into the news. So basically, the Fed, Powell today admitted that inflation is here to stay. It's not transitory. Did he come out and say that directly? No. But what he did say is that inflation would moderate. Now, first of all, what is inflation? It's the increase in the cost of living, it's rising prices. Some people point to just being the money supply. I disagree with that. I think inflation, the broader definition, includes the overall cost of living, rising prices. But either way, we're seeing most people having to pay more for everyday goods and services. But the Fed has said here over the past several months that it's transitory, meaning that it's not here to stay. But today, listen to what he said. He said inflation is going to moderate, but moderation doesn't mean deflation. It just means the rate of acceleration or the rate of increase in the prices is not going to be as much, or it's going to drop down. So instead of going 100 miles per hour, it might drop down to 50 miles per hour, to put a racing analogy on this whole situation. It doesn't mean that the race car is going to stop and go in reverse. It just means that the level of inflation is going to drop down. So a picture of that would be, instead of home prices going up 15%, they might only go up 12%. So inflation is going to moderate, is basically what he said. Take a listen at this excerpt from his speech today.
Inflation has increased notably and will likely remain elevated in coming months before moderating. As the economy continues to reopen and spending rebounds, we are seeing upward pressure on prices, particularly because supply bottlenecks in some sectors have limited how quickly production can respond in the near term. These bottleneck effects have been larger than anticipated, but as these transitory supply effects abate, inflation is expected to drop back toward our longer-run goal.
Right, so let's pause right there. So there is not going to be any correction. There's not going to be any deflation. Only the rate of inflation, instead of prices rising faster, they're going to continue to rise, just not as fast. You see what he's getting at? And he used the word transitory here in regards to supply chains and the disruptions and the bottlenecks in supply chains. So now he's using the word transitory, which they used to talk about inflation being transitory, and now they're moving it over towards supply chains. Now, supply chains, of course, have to do with inflation. When you look at the supply-demand equation, that's definitely part of it. But isn't it interesting how they've changed their tune here? All right, but listen to this next part. So actually, inflation could go even higher than they expect. So basically, he has no idea what's going to happen. Take a listen to this part of what he said.
As the reopening continues, bottlenecks, hiring difficulties, and other constraints could continue to limit how quickly supply can adjust, raising the possibility that inflation could turn out to be higher and more persistent than we expect. Our new framework for monetary policy emphasizes the importance of having well-anchored inflation expectations, both to foster price stability and to enhance our ability to promote our broad-based and inclusive maximum employment goal.
And you also hear the word that he said, price stability. So in other words, keep prices stable, do not allow any market corrections, do not allow deflation, and do not allow the cost of living to adjust to what people can actually afford to pay. So therefore, you have to keep handing out money, keep handing out assistance. You see how this works? Price stability, aka not allowing deflation. All right, next topic, let's transition here. Still having to do with inflation though. Another new record for new car prices, $41,000. This just out today, recent article. So why are we not talking about these rising prices? Why are we not talking about bringing jobs back to the United States? Does anyone think that raising the corporate tax rate is going to make the companies pay their fair share? Or does it just mean that companies are going to further outsource jobs to countries with lower costs, lower labor costs, and lower tax rates, right? So we're going to continue to lose manufacturing here in the US. We're going to continue to see higher and higher prices. We're going to continue to see more and more goods and products imported and less manufacturing here in the United States. So we're headed in the wrong direction, and no one's talking about any solutions. The Fed, of course, Powell's back there talking about how they need to continue to stabilize prices, but their definition of stabilize is just constant increase in prices. All right, remember the 2% inflation target. It's an inflation target. It's not a fair market target. So no matter how many people lose their jobs, no matter how little people are being paid, prices need to continue to rise no matter what. Does that make any sense to anyone out there? If it does, please let me know down in the comments and explain your theory and explain your rationale how that makes sense. Because I haven't heard anyone be able to explain that to me. And I listen to economist interviews, financial experts every day, and no one can explain that, right? How does constant rising prices make sense when you have people on fixed incomes, many people with no income, and even most people in the labor force are not getting enough wage increases to keep up with rising costs? So how does constant inflation make sense when the purchasing power doesn't match the inflation? Doesn't make any sense to me, but again, maybe it does to you. Please let me know down in the comments. All right, excerpt out of this article here regarding the car prices. Quote, we can't get to 41,000 without both a supply chain issue that we're seeing from microchips as well as increased consumer demand that is not being met with the supply available. That's J.D. Power Vice President. Right? Why is nobody talking about, hey, let's manufacture chips here in the United States? Let's have companies come back to the United States. Let's lower the corporate tax rate to encourage companies to come back. Let's let the cost of living drop. That way, people wouldn't need such high wages, and that will further incentivize companies to come back here to the United States, and we can make things and fix the supply chain issue by manufacturing goods and products here in the United States. Pretty crazy times, folks. We're living in a time where common sense is not so common, where financial engineering and manipulation override natural market forces. So I expect things to continue to get worse. Prices continue to rise. The cost of living continue to rise. You might want to hedge yourself against this inflation. I'm continuing to stack silver. I also am buying the dip on cryptos. I went ahead and bought the dip a few weeks ago, as I explained. A few of these digital assets and coins. And when they zoom back up, which I expect they will be over the next few weeks and months, then I'll sell some off. But I'm continuing to buy silver because silver, in my opinion, is continuing to be suppressed. And silver hasn't seen its actual day as far as the inflation and the rising price that we're going to see, in my opinion. Link down below if you'd like to stack. That's what I'm doing. Do your own due diligence. Continue to prepare. Stay well, everybody. Until next time, thanks for watching this report. Peace.